Keith, I believe you have a strong opinion on something.
I do. My indefensible opinion is that Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, is not that bad.
Wow.
It is like Green Lantern. It's got an incredibly bad reputation and is generally on in all directions. But I think, in particular, with the creation of the episode 7, 8, and 9, which we can get to later, and believe you me, gentlemen, we will get there later. It's not a bad storyline.
Can I jump in here, Keith?
Oh God, here we go.
You're saying it's not a bad movie. You're stopping somewhat from saying it's a good movie.
It is enjoyable. I challenge anyone who doesn't watch it for the first time, particularly in cinemas, to say they didn't enjoy it.
Okay.
Does it stand up to scrutiny? Is it particularly well made out or well written? No, I can't say that. But I will say it was an entertaining movie, and it did what it said on the tin. Anyway, going back a little step, you obviously had the 1977 to 1983 movies, and then George Lucas did nothing apart from Indiana Jones and Howard the Duck, and until he happened to wander on to watching them make Jurassic Park in 1993, 1994, and then realised that with the revolutions in CGI technology, he could now bring about the new sets of Star Wars films that he was apparently had already. Well, he says he always intended to write 9 movies. He's always intended to do that, and then he realised he couldn't put together the budget, so he picked a trilogy, which he happened to be the middle of the story, and did that as episodes 4, 5, and 6.
Now, do we believe him, Keith? Do we believe him on this? Or do we think he's talking out of his arse?
Well, in the special features of when Star Wars was released on DVD, he talks about the fact that when Star Wars was being made, he sacrificed his pay and certain rights for the rights to direct the other movies, to produce more. And he says in it, I assumed that episode 4 would be a flop, so I wanted to protect the rights to my other movies. Now, in my head, that makes no sense, because he's trying to protect rights to a movie he's not going to make.
I think it's important to remember that this is a man who doesn't understand how humans actually speak. So anything he said in interviews should be taken with a pinch of salt. Look, dialogue has never been his strength.
Yes, but movie rights are like sand; it gets everywhere. And this is what he was trying to say. But I don't give it any credit at all. But he said it was 9 movies. But then he decided after, he hadn't directed for a while, so he waited till 1997, 98 to come back and do episode 1. And in the interim, of course, he did the special editions for the original 3 movies, putting in new CGI scenes, and of course we could all argue whether or not any of it is any better.
I think elements are improved. I quite like the fact that they make the city in the clouds more of a city.
Yeah, I've never had a problem with the redone original trilogy, particularly.
In that case, I challenge you to watch that on Blu-ray DVD.
I've not done that.
Yes. I thought Family Guy's send-up of it was quite good. But anyway, he has argued, George Lucas has argued, that of course, and in fact it's on the special features DVD, that each trilogy of Star Wars should be like poetry or a song. It should rhyme. You should have the same sort of themes in each trilogy. And episode 1,
he only knows how to write one trilogy.
I think you could argue the storylines for episodes 1 to 6 are all his. The dialogue is a combination of different screenwriters and the actors on the day. And it was a testament to the fact that the director of Empire Strikes Back, along with the actors, particularly Harrison Ford, changed their lines. the iconic
Yeah,
"I love
good
you,
job.
I know," was entirely made up on set.
Yes.
That was not the line as written.
Harrison.
Of course. So can George Lucas direct? No. And watching him on the special features of Revenge of the Sith talk about acting to Ian McDiarmid is painful. Because George Lucas couldn't act his way out of a paper bag.
No.
And he's talking to someone who knows his character, who knows his craft, and is a classically trained theatre actor. But having said, I could go on the complaints for ages about George Lucas, but be that as it may, Episode 1 introduces us to a host of new characters.
Oh, yes, it does, Keith.
It does, and I'm not going to excuse Jar Jar Binks. I'm not going to, there is a reason he was marginalised in Episodes 2 and 3. It was an experiment that didn't work. It was perhaps designed or conceptualised very much as a sort of Gollum-like character. But it didn't happen, and no one's going to argue it did. However, I happened to watch it with my younger siblings when it came out, and they loved Jar Jar Binks. So, from a marketing point of view,
are your younger siblings massive racists as well?
I don't think they realised it was racist until they grew a bit older. I will say that my dad certainly did, because he sat there halfway through and went, "Oh dear." But be that as it may, the film is incredibly well put together in terms of it's very well designed. The different planets, which are completely new to the Star Wars universe. Before they didn't have the budget, they didn't have the kind of material that they to put what George Lucas envisioned on the screen. And maybe this is a crime of CGI, but whatever he thought of, he could put on the screen. And that's exactly what happened. So you had sweeping vistas, you had big CGI shots, you could do a whole city, you could do the Gungung's underwater capital. It was huge. And unfortunately, that eventually culminated in the fight between the Gungans and the droids. That meant nothing. It was a rubbish fight. It was mainly played for humour where you could. It was essentially an extension of the Ewoks versus the Empire fight in Return of the Jedi, but on a massive scale with a lot more CGI.
And then, you say a lot more CGI. It was only CGI, wasn't it?
That's true. That's absolutely right. Yep. However, he made the clever idea of intercutting it with the fights of the Jedi and Darth Maul, who, even though he was a stuntman, couldn't act, was amazing as an idea, as a both
the highlight
visually,
or one of them is,
and the way it's portrayed on screen. Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn, very much in some ways as the Alec Guinness character from Episode 4, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
You forget that Liam Neeson was in it. He must have appreciated the Jar Jar Binks character.
Oh.
Oh God!
Wow. Well, if that doesn't get us banned from YouTube, I don't know what will. But yeah,
skirting over that.
Moving swiftly on. It's got Liam Neeson. It's got Ewan McGregor, who desperately is trying to do homage to Alec Guinness as Obi-Wan Kenobi, knowing full well what character means. It's got a strong female character with Natalie Portman's Queen Amidala. Again, none of this is particularly well written in terms of dialogue, but the story beats are there.
A strong character who falls apart by the third film, but okay.
Do you not think that there's for an action kid sci-fi epic, there's a little bit too much trade negotiations in it?
That's what kids love.
Everyone loves a good trade negotiation.
And you want to talk about racist aliens? Here we go.
I'm not going there. I'm really not.
Is there anywhere you are going with this?
I think, as I've said several times now, the idea of it is quite interesting.
So
because
as a script,
wait for it.
Right.
Wait. He's clearly something that didn't happen in 7, 8, and 9, which you're going to defend in just a second. They didn't have his overarching plan is clearly taking ideas from Nazi Germany. How a republic, a democracy, is overturned. And it doesn't just happen like a light switch. It happens incrementally from threats
the
and corruption within.
Rise.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Emperor's Rise is very well done.
Okay, yes, the way he's manipulating the whole thing from behind the scenes. And as a fan of Star Wars, you know that in episode 1 when you watch it. Because it is clearly Ian McDiarmid under the cloak. But if you just watched it for the first time, had no idea that that was the same actor who played Palpatine in episode 6, you wouldn't know.
As we were going to say, he can improve any movie, any Star Wars movie. He can fix.
You'd think so, wouldn't you? And up until about November last year, I would have said that was true.
You know what? I was just thinking. I know you said the Lucas originally wanted to make all 9 films. That would have made the reveal of who Darth Vader is have a little less impact in Empire Strikes Back, wouldn't you say?
Well, because his plan was that the final 3 films would be focused on. I mean, he's changed his mind many times, but it was always supposed to be Luke and Leia's children in the final 3 films. It wasn't supposed to be, Darth Vader was supposed to die. But then, of course, when he did episodes 1 to 6, he now says, of course, he's changed his mind. He's changed his tune a bit and said that 1 to 6, it's just the Star Wars saga is essentially the story of Darth Vader.
If Luke had had his way, they may have actually been Luke and Leia's children as well.
But quite. But I also think that beyond the theme of the politics of democracy being got rid of, you've also got the idea, and it's very similar to Greek tragedy. And in fact, we were talking last week about Columbo. We're knowing that something's going to happen, why this person did it. We know Anakin Skywalker becomes Darth Vader. And we see how this young boy, is eventually going to become one of the most evil people in the galaxy. And we don't know why. We don't know how it starts. But there's always a sense of foreboding because we know that's where he's going to end up. It's inevitable. Very much like Thanos.
Yeah, but the problem is that we don't know how he's going to become Darth Vader. But it turns out how he's going to become Darth Vader is that he starts having a really unbelievable relationship with this woman that looks like
Are you an angel?
Looks like it's been taken out of a really cheesy American soap opera.
Oh God. It's been on the tip of my tongue for ages, that, by the way. Are you an angel?
Again, I'm not defending the script.
What's interesting, Keith, is that I've been watching a hell of a lot of the Clone Wars cartoon series.
They are fantastic.
And this is because the boy has become addicted to it. So I've been watching quite a lot of it. And in a way, you kind of think a lot of this needed to be in the films because it kind of explains to a certain degree of what everything. Yes. I mean, I watched an episode today and I suddenly realized that part of Anakin becoming Darth Vader was that he had post-traumatic stress syndrome from the Clone Wars. And why they didn't go into that in the last of the 3, I don't know. Because it seemed they concentrated a bit too much on his ridiculous relationship with Padme. Although that's fleshed out a lot more in the cartoons as well. I mean, they in a way they almost tried to do too much in these 3 films.
It is unfortunate because episode 2, the Clone Wars begin. In the beginning of episode 3, it's almost pitched as the final battle.
Yeah.
Right at the beginning, it's the opening credits almost. It's kind of, yes. So the Clone Wars, which is incidentally is written and show run by Dave Filoni, who then went to do The Mandalorian, explains why, that he understands Star Wars and wanted to put stuff in there. The novelization of the 3 Star Wars films, the 3 prequels, are amazing. But they took the themes and the story ideas that George Lucas created for them as the basis for his story, and then wrote around them. And I think that's, had they, for example, I have read a theory a few years ago, the idea that episode 1, if that had been set at the beginning of essentially episode 2, so Anakin is in training, and he's a young, you can build in his backstory of his mother and whatever, and that he was rescued. But if you just did that, and then you had those 3 films, because Star Wars never before or since has jumped by 10 years in between films. You end episode 1 with Jake Lloyd, and you begin with Hayden Christensen in the beginning of episode 2. So it's completely different. It jumps completely, and obviously there's backstory there. If you just started episode 1 with Obi-Wan Kenobi as the mentor, and Hayden Christensen's Anakin as a Padawan, if you just started there and then told 3 films, you'd have an extra film in the middle to do the Clone Wars bit. But obviously that was a decision he wanted to do how a boy. I mean, maybe he got taken with the idea, because I don't know about you guys, but there was a lot of promotional material that went out, particularly of Jake Lloyd as Anakin running by a building. And while he's doing that, there's behind it is a silhouette, and the silhouette is, of course, Darth Vader. So clearly indicating.
Can I just jump in here? So what are we saying, that this film, which is not bad, would have been better if it didn't exist?
No, I said there was an argument.
Yeah, but you made a very good argument, and we all agreed with your argument. Well done, Keith.
Well, I'm so used to you all agreeing. No, can I say it's a good it's a well written film or a well produced film? No,
Written film.
It is entertaining. No, hang on. I want an honest answer from you two now, rather than mocking me as you are prone to do. Why I turn up to this abuse, I really don't know. But the fact is, I'm on lockdown. I've got nothing better to do. When you watched it for the first time, were you not entertained? Did you not enjoy it?
I was quite young when I watched it, so you two must have been a bit younger. And
yeah,
I was only 18 at the time, 17.
No, it was younger than that.
No, it came out in 99.
Did it?
Yeah, 17 I think I was. Certainly no younger than 16, but that's it. Are
we sure about our dates here?
Yeah, I was born in 83, so it came out in 99, so I was 16.
I know when I was born. I wasn't questioning your age.
Keith, are you sure you were born then?
Yeah. Yeah, 1999, he is right. Yeah, it feels much.
You don't need to say that with such surprise. I do research these things before I sit down.
But you're trying to defend this movie, Keith. My opinion of your opinion of things is now quite low. So,
wow.
I'm not sure about your facts.
One problem with it was that it was. Do you remember? It was lauded as a masterpiece. Remember?
Yeah.
Empire gave it 5 stars.
Yeah, which they've bitterly regretted and repented since.
And but oddly, it came out in the same summer. I think I'm right in saying this, as The Matrix.
It did indeed.
And obviously, The Matrix all over it, in quite a horrendous way. And it didn't look good in comparison. So
You were 16, Keith, when it came out. The reason I was proving because I was
again. You two haven't answered my question. When you watched it for the first time, were you not entertained?
I was entertained when I watched it for the first time.
I was entertained, but it doesn't mean it was a good movie. It was one of those, as a young man who was desperate for a new Star Wars movie, I enjoyed that I got some Star Wars. It is a Star Wars movie. But when you take in the cold light of day looking back, I cannot say it's a good movie. It's not the worst Star Wars movie for me, but it's the second worst. It's just it doesn't float my boat.
Why have
as
you
a
got
Star
such a
Wars
problem with The Empire Strikes Back?
movie.
It has. I mean, I agree that I love Darth Maul. I think he's amazing. He's a triumph of the film.
Yeah.
I like the ideas that of the slow progression of the story and how they are trying to build things up. However, I think the dialogue is awful.
Agreed.
I think it looks awful. I think all the CGI just looks awful. If it was a cartoon, you might be able to get away with it, but it wasn't. So it just looked appalling. I mean, there's stupid stories you hear, like George Lucas wanted to change the angle in which Anakin held a pad. So he went in and CGI'd the pad so it looked the other way. And that sums up the whole thing. He there's no sense of any soul to it. It's completely soulless. And
It's too computerized.
It's hard to tell whether Hayden Christensen is a bad actor, because I mean, he had no idea what he was saying. He had no idea where he was when he was saying it. He had no idea what was going on.
Do you mean Jake Lloyd?
No, Hayden Christensen.
So 2 and 3.
Sorry, yeah, I am. I'm sort of addressing all three at the same time in this tirade. But yeah, that goes to all the actors, really. None of them knew what was happening. They didn't have a director that was directing them. They didn't know where they were. They didn't know what they were saying. It was complete nonsense most of the time, and it's all a bit of a shame, really.
My particular favourite story is episode 2, when Padme and Anakin arrive on Geonosis, the termite planet. And they have this very big action scene running through the foundry during conveyor belts and everything else. Of course, none of it's there. And it wasn't in the script. George Lucas just decided one day he was going to do it. It needed more pace and more action at this point. So when Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen came back off lunch, they said, right, okay, you've just arrived on this planet. You're going to do this whole thing now where you're running down a conveyor belt and doing all these things, all these action stuff. But, just thrash about and all this kind of stuff. And we'll put stuff in later that makes sense to it. Because there's no dialogue in those sequences at all. Because nothing was written. It was just run along this blue conveyor belt in front of a blue screen, and we'll put everything in later. Absolute mess.
Doing that all on a full stomach as well.
Indeed.
I will jump in and say I haven't gone back and watched this film in a while. It's been a fair while now since I've seen it, so I should put a little asterisk on anything I say about it. One thing particularly I'm talking about the fact that I don't know how the effect held up, but back in the day, I quite liked. I'm going to correct myself before I say this here. I like the concept of and the delivery of the pod racing scenes. I don't like Anakin in the pod racing particularly. I think him being able to do it's a bit silly. But I quite enjoyed the pod racing, and it gave us a pretty cool N64 game.
I think the pod racing scene is another of the highlights. I think it's really good, and I don't have a problem with Anakin doing it because he's
What do you do?
He's a Jedi in the making.
See that.
He's got the Jedi powers.
It's just a bit weird that he can suddenly just do this thing that nobody should be able to. I don't know.
No,
there was just
hang on. Yeah. No, he's a Jedi. It's not that no one can do it. He can do it because
he's not a Jedi, is he?
But he's strong with the midichlorians.
He's got strong with midichlorians. Yeah.
I knew that was coming. I knew someone. I knew
well
as soon as I raised episode 1, I knew full well I would not get out of here without someone going for the midichlorians.
But the midichlorians are very good at racing. I forgot about that. Sorry.
They're excellent at racing.
Be competitive.
The midichlorians are utter nonsense and really almost spoiled the whole thing.
It's the fact they don't go back to him later. Brilliant. It's the newer trilogy doesn't make reference to him. It's just like, yeah, we all know. Just we've done it. It's out there. We'll just pretend it didn't happen. Nobody say the word. It's like, oh, he might be a Jedi. We could check his midichlorians. Nobody mentioned midichlorians. There's no way to know if he's a Jedi until he knows the powers.
Just gloss it all over. It never happened.
Yeah. Can you imagine Rey's midichlorian count? It must be like through the roof.
Yeah, be interesting to know what it is. I'm sure there's.
Would it though? Would it really be interesting?
I'm sure there's a deleted scene. There's a deleted scene somewhere.
And if we could just add in a trade negotiation. There's somebody dying of a broken heart.
Oh. So.
But it's a good job the final trilogy they just did were good, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yep. They really sorted things out nicely there.
I say final, there'll be more when they. We can all agree they were 3 really good films. All 3.
Absolute crackers. The 3 of them.
What's that Meatloaf song? 2 out of 3 ain't bad. You like them all, don't you, Keith?
I wouldn't go that far.
Pray tell.
Well, that was my next statement, but I don't know if we're doing that now. I've done my bit. I've done.
Oh, go on, Keith. You said we were getting there. You promised it to our audience. You've got to deliver now.
Well, as bad as you may think episode 1 is, my submission is that episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, is an absolute travesty on every level. If it had such a category, I'd submit it as a human rights violation.
Oh,
but the page doesn't have that. So yeah, okay. Again, this is going back to the history. In 2012, good old George Lucas decided that he'd had enough of the Star Wars game and decided to sell off the entire part of Lucasfilm of Star Wars to Disney for a cool $4.05 billion. I don't know.
Cheap it off the price.
Yeah, indeed. Disney also bought in the same purchase. They basically kept him on as a consultant, and also said that they were buying the 3 treatments he had done on episodes 7, 8, and 9, which incidentally was their first announcement that almost as soon as they said we've bought we bought Lucasfilm, we're also buying the rights to episode 7, which we intend to make, and it'll be released the end of 2015. And they got into, and the idea was for them to do 1 film a piece every year for the next 3 or 4 years, with the actual Skywalker episodes being every other year. So I film in between. And basically their plan, and I imagine that's what a lot of people feared, was that they'd rule Christmas for the next decade, really. So yes, you had Force Awakens in 2015. Not necessarily a bad film. I think they did it in some ways exactly like episode 1 in terms of setting up a new story. I think
we all agree that we quite like that one, right?
Yes. Well, I think so. Laurence?
I have no issue with it.
But they did it the way they should have made the first prequels, in that, that what I like about J.J. Abrams, and I don't like everything about J.J. Abrams, but I do like the way he likes to do everything in camera, and only using CGI at the last possible point. So I like that about it, that it felt very real, very raw, and I think it suited the Star Wars universe a lot more than the prequels did.
And I should note that he bought one of J.J. Abrams' big decisions was bringing back in Laurence Kasdan, who screenwrote episodes 5 and 6 after George Lucas did the initial treatment. He wrote some of the script. So he was.
Good idea.
So, and plus, personally, I imagine he took the role because he wanted to kill off Harrison Ford, which he pitched back when they were doing Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
And George Lucas refused, and clearly Harrison Ford wants to kill off his character, so it was a match made in heaven. But I thought it created a lot of the whole episode 7 premise created a lot of interest, made you want to know more. You had a villain that you didn't really know much about. Whether they should have taken Ben Solo, his face mask off so early is debatable, but some people love it, some people don't. But I think it would have been really odd to have that scene with his father if he hadn't.
Oh yeah, that needed to be massive.
The whole Luke Skywalker's lightsaber, the return of it. Well, actually, it's Anakin's lightsaber that was basically pickpocketed by Obi-Wan Kenobi in Episode 3 and given to Rey, and literally.
Visions of Obi-Wan is like a pagan character now.
I mean, the character who gives it to Rey goes as far as to say, "Oh yeah, it's an interesting story for another time." In typical Abrams fashion, that never gets answered. Yeah. But be that as it may. So anyway, you had Episode 7, which is what it is. I think it set the board quite nicely.
Yes,
it was interesting. It was great to see some of the characters again, and it ended on an amazing cliffhanger of reintroducing Luke Skywalker to the Star Wars universe.
Here is where the problem comes in for me. Yes, because you went in there going, okay, you've done a very close film to the earlier trilogy,
which again,
and you think, okay, yeah, not
to my
always a bad thing.
idea. So it goes back to George Lucas's idea that the 3 trilogies, they should rhyme. And if you think about Episode 1, Episode 4, and Episode 7, they do have a mentor figure. Yeah. Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Han Solo, who mentor the younger character who doesn't really know anything. They all die at the end of that particular film. You have a new villain, or a villain figure, and you have an enemy force. So there's lots of things in there. You have a strong... But in the previous 2 trilogies, you had a strong female character who didn't have the Force. In this one, they've amalgamated it as a strong female character who does have the Force. No problem with that at all.
To be fair, Keith, I mean, George Lucas, certainly in the beginning, and most of these films just follow the classic narrative.
Yes, absolutely.
Which is what Tolkien used. And
I'm glad you said that, Laurence. We'll get there. We'll get around to that in a second.
Don't give him ammunition.
But yes, so it was a good film. It set the board nicely. And then, of course, they did, a year later, they did Rogue One.
Yay!
A phenomenal film.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
To be fair, it is essentially an entire film and a multi-million-dollar project to cover a plot hole in Episode 4. But brilliantly done.
Very well.
Brilliantly done. Though, to be fair, I think an internet meme does point out that the whole format of the Death Star files some of us really love data formats because the amount of disks that information goes into throughout the last part of the movie is quite something. But be that as it may, unfortunately, that film was slightly marred by the passing that Christmas of release of Carrie Fisher.
Yeah.
That will come into play in just a second. A year later, so December 2017, we had The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
Now, I could say a lot about The Last Jedi, but that's not what I'm attacking right now. All I'd say is that it went in a controversial direction.
Mm-hmm.
It did what unexpected, the killing of Supreme Leader Snoke.
Yep.
But it made me interested to see what they were going to do in Episode 9.
It killed the interest in me seeing what they did in Episode 9. It was only the trailers that got me back with that one.
Indeed.
But that's a person.
But yeah. So Episode 9 comes around. And that is where my friends, the problems really start.
For you.
For me, thematically, it's a mess of a film. story-wise, it doesn't make sense. And I completely caveat this that it was a result of Carrie Fisher's death and them having to redo parts of it. But it's also a result of the decisions that were made during The Last Jedi. I don't blame the director for that, because he pitched something, but he would not necessarily have done something if he didn't have authorization to do it. So killing Luke Skywalker was clearly fine. And that could have been the original script for it. But they should have rewritten that, and Carrie Fisher died a year before The Last Jedi was released. And they perhaps should have reconsidered the Snoke because Palpatine, while I love to see him, Ian McDiarmid back in all his lightning glory, doesn't actually make any sense. And the idea of him cloning Snoke, cloning him from what? Why he has does he know he's a clone? None of that's covered. It's all ignored. But also, I'm totally fine. Everyone on this podcast, at least, is aware of the idea of a MacGuffin, an item or a theme or something that someone needs to find in a movie. For example, it drives the whole plot. Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade is a prime example. The original Transformers movie with the Allspark, that kind of thing. The Maltese Falcon. There are loads of films that do this. There are so many MacGuffins in The Rise of Skywalker, it's not funny. They start off and saying, okay, the main villain suddenly announces he's returning. He announces in the opening crawl he's back, and within 16 hours, he's going to take over the galaxy. Why 16 hours? We don't know. That's just how Palpatine feels. He's got bored.
And I presume he announced his return over some kind of Zoom call or house party or something.
I like to think it was kind of like Lord Voldemort in Deathly Hallows. We like his form of communication. He just announced he's going to return. Okay. But that to me takes out the whole, you could have really set up the idea of Kylo Ren in this very atmospheric and very well shot scene of him in the sort of crypt on this Sith planet and facing Palpatine. That would have been good, but he overlooks the fact, oh yeah, Palpatine's back. Okay, we'll move on. And the one time they get to address why Palpatine's back, how have you done this? He quotes from Episode 3. He just refers back to that. It doesn't go into any real detail as to how he's back, why he's back, how he's managed to accomplish this, etc., etc. They introduce new characters that don't go anywhere.
Good characters.
Yeah, really good characters. For example, do we know that the girl at the end of the movie, is she Lando's daughter? Who knows? Is he hitting on her? Is he, has he become a bit of a pederast? We don't know. It's the story.
We're interested to find out.
Yeah, well, no, we're not. We're not interested to find out. You introduced. I mean, this is a side note. You introduced a lesbian kiss in the movie. I'm fine with the idea of a gay character in Star Wars. No objection to it. But make it a character, not just a side thing. Because you're clearly doing it as a statement. And it doesn't, you can make a statement, but make it a proper one. If you want to go all the way, make Rey gay. Fair enough.
Gay Rey?
Gay Rey. But you've had to bring back Lando, who Lando Calrissian, who was very charismatic in episodes 5 and 6, had a good character, had a good arc, especially in episode 5. I mean, he ended up wearing Han's clothes, which is a bit weird at the end of episode 5, but Family Guy did that already.
I don't understand why that's weird. He needed to get changed. He was on the Millennium Falcon. He's got no one else's wardrobe to access. Why?
Who else did he wear?
Han wasn't wearing
Chewie's clothes. He could just put a belt on and a bandolier.
He hadn't left all his capes on there from Solo.
Yeah. Anyway, going back to that particular point, they go to they have this Wayfinder item, which is clearly a holocron from the cartoons, the comics, and the books. But okay, we'll move on. They have to find this. They then go to a planet that Lando Calrissian, businessman extraordinaire and international playboy, he's going around the world, charming women, running businesses. He's lived on a desert planet for 20 years.
Yeah, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but he was with Luke originally, and Luke just off.
Yeah.
And he stayed there. He didn't go with Luke. He just decided, oh, you know what? I can't be. Luke just said, I can't find it. I'm going home. Ray finds it in 5 minutes.
You've got a choice: stay where he is, or go sit on a rock with some weird milk-making freaks.
I think you're being deliberately obtuse. Okay. Next, the next MacGuffin, the Sith dagger, which can somehow is designed in such a way that it can show you where you need to go inside the wreckage of the Death Star.
Yeah.
To find something that he must have found already because he's got instructions from Palpatine. So would he just forget where it was on the Death Star? It belongs to the Sith assassin who is sent by Palpatine to find his own, son and his wife, girlfriend, whatever, the mother of his grandchild. It makes no sense.
Well, to be fair, and obviously I haven't seen it since the cinema because it's not released till Monday.
Indeed.
But a lot of this I don't remember, to be frank, and a lot of but there's lots of films that don't make any sense.
I've got a question on this one, Laurence. When you saw this film, you weren't a young man. You were the age one.
I know what's coming.
Much. Were you entertained by it? Because I was entertained by this film. I thoroughly entertained. I was entertained from the first few minutes when I saw Palpatine.
I was entertained. I was very surprised. I was very surprised why they decided to announce their big twist in the opening credit sequence.
It was to give me hope.
That was really odd.
It was to make me go, my God, it's back. Star Wars is back. Yes.
But it would have been even better if you had that at the end.
As a reveal.
Yeah.
It was me all along.
That is because, despite what Disney say, they never planned to bring Palpatine back.
I think Keith, you're right. It's been a complete planning disaster. But we're not here reviewing the planning of films, are we?
We're looking at the execution.
The actual films themselves. And, I mean, things like the Emperor being back, no problem with it at all. They've set it up in episode 3 that you can do that. Bish bash bosh, everyone's a winner.
Yeah, it's got it, and it follows your idea there of symmetry, that it following from one series to the next to the other. 3, 6, 9. It's good. He's back.
I think that the fact that he cloned or created Snoke is a brilliant conceit. And I have absolutely no problem with it at all. And I don't know why you would. I mean, why do we need a full scientific explanation as to why he's done it? He's done it. It's sci-fi. Let's get on with it.
Yeah. Do we need to know all the details of how Luke's hand worked?
No.
He had a robotic hand. We accepted it.
Okay. This is my next.
They're using light to hurt.
Okay.
Lightsaber.
Okay. You morons are having your fun. It's fine. Now, from a franchise perspective, is Anakin Skywalker the chosen one? Because you've destroyed the idea that Darth Vader sacrificed his life to kill this one character, and it means nothing. You have invalidated episode 6.
He kept Luke alive, and Luke went on to deliver Rey for us and get him ready.
Some cows that do green gunk. No, you can yourself.
For me, this episode 9 also introduced one of the greatest screen characters of all time.
Oh,
Love to my dying day. Babu Frick. How great is that character? He's ace. Babu Frick. Brilliant.
Is he the little dude?
The little dude. The little engineer.
Yeah,
Tell me he's not the cutest thing on screen.
he was pretty awesome.
He's awesome.
Yeah. Again, his appearance is very funny, but it negates the fact that the girl is there. She somehow managed to get off a planet that incidentally has been blown up in the meantime. That she got off a planet without the
weren't you happy
medallion
about
that she sacrificed.
Have you not got any heart? Did you not smile when you saw that she was alive and there was a chance for love to carry on? It was a heartwarming moment, Keith. Got no heart.
Yeah. Would it improved, Keith, if he had turned to her and gone, "Are you an angel?" Would that improved it? Yeah.
It would. I nearly died of a broken heart.
I guess my main complaint about the whole sequel trilogy is the wasted opportunity. Is what it could have been. I mean, if you think about it, they junked the expanded universe. I totally understand why they did that. I personally disagreed with that, but I understand why they did. And they could have done anything with episodes 7, 8, and 9. And they had
really entertaining.
They had
I have to say
the main cast on board for episode 7 at least, and they did this.
I have to completely agree, I'm afraid. With that point, I think they could have done a lot better. I mean,
yeah, the potential was there for a lot better.
I think Rogue One was really good.
Yes.
Brilliant. I think Solo was pretty good. And if you just put the first three episodes of The Mandalorian up in the cinema as a film, that's probably better than all of them. So why they couldn't have just done that with the trilogy as well, I just don't know. It kind of felt like that in the way of latter Bond films, where they felt they had all these elements that they had to get in, so they were shoehorning as much in as possible. And I think they could have just come up with a story, like Keith says. It could still have those main characters in it, but they were trying too hard almost.
I think they made the best of a bad situation with The Rise of Skywalker for me. It won me back over in terms of enjoying Star Wars films, because Last Jedi robbed me of that for a while. I was really disappointed. But overall, yeah, they could have come up with a better trilogy, a better overall story. As you say, those characters are good characters that you could use with a good structured story. It's a shame they didn't.
And Keith is right. It is the planning of it that's cocked it all up in many ways.
Yeah.
Because if they made decisions with The Last Jedi, which we may not have agreed with, and then Chris, you and I have discussed this before. We're not overly fond of The Last Jedi at all. Yeah. But they made decisions there, and that's fine. But don't
stick to your guns.
Stick to your guns for the next one if you had a plan to do it.
Well, that's just it. They didn't seem to have a plan for the third.
No.
It was just really weird.
And I find
the whole director thing was weird for me, having the different directors for each one. Why not have a consistent vision?
Well,
I don't get it.
They had different directors for the original trilogy.
Yeah, but things have moved on from there, really.
And hang on.
Behind him.
Every single one of the MCU have got different directors.
Yeah, but there's a hell of a lot more of them, though.
What you did have is J.J. Abrams producing all three, and that's where the consistency is. J.J. Abrams.
He does seem to get a pass on the Last Jedi. People seem to go, "Oh, he came back and saved us with the other one." But if you have that opinion, but
he authorized everything that happened on screen. Everything went through J.J. Abrams, and he it up, unfortunately.
Maybe he'll do a time traveling story where we go off on a different tangent, and they can redo those films, and we can get characters that we loved from the past and go in a completely different direction. I feel it can be done. I feel there's evidence of it.
Well, let's start a crowdfunding thing.
Can you imagine having to crowdfund Star Wars?
Let's get this done. Redoing Star Wars.
By the way, I heard a noise back there. I don't know if that was Keith slamming his microphone down. I've said my piece. I'm walking away. I'm done. Screw him.
I'm still here.
Hang on, I can hear the voice of the Emperor. He's calling us.
It's 16 hours. He's going to kill everybody.
I just think back to the idea that back in 2015 or a bit earlier than that, 2012, when they said they got the original actors on board, and they could have gone anywhere with it. If you want to go rogue or controversial, that's fine. You don't have to play it safe. George Lucas was all, very safe, which is why in Episode 6 he didn't kill off Han Solo. I mean, that moment, even though we knew as cinema goers in Episode 7 when Han Solo's killed by Kylo Ren, we understand it. It's going to happen, but it's still shocking when it happens because it's a part of our childhood.
Yeah,
and he gets killed, and it's like, oh my god. But beyond that, I felt quite shocked when I watched that Last Jedi when Snoke died. I was like, well, that seems like a waste. And then, it's just very, and then they went off and killed Luke Skywalker. And it's just kind of like you've committed to that, and the behind the scenes machinations of Solo, where they fired the original directors, and they had to reshoot a huge portion of the movie with Russell Howard instead.
Hi, this is Chris in the edit. Keith obviously meets Ron Howard, although the idea of the comedian Russell Howard directing Solo sounds brilliant to me.
Shows that they were prepared to do it. So they could have redone parts of The Last Jedi. Because, and it wouldn't necessarily have been because that they felt their agenda was wrong, but Carrie Fisher's death did move things around. It did change things because she wasn't going to be there. They did the best they could. I'm not disputing it. And J.J. Abrams does know how to put on a spectacle.
She was in it a hell of a lot, though, wasn't she, considering she's dead? She was in it loads.
Oh, yeah.
Which is weird. But,
yeah.
I mean...
They had that perfect time to kill her off as well.
Clearly,
in that film.
The plan was, Episode 1, you kill off Han Solo. Episode 2, you kill off Luke Skywalker. Episode 3, you kill off Princess Leia.
Could have just flipped that, couldn't they?
Well, quite easily, yeah. I mean, and that would have made more sense as well, because obviously Luke Skywalker is the bigger character. You'd have had him dying in the third one, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
It just to me seems like a waste. And it's a sense of disappointment that I'll never quite get over. But no, it's just when I watch it, that's how I feel. If you wanted to put Palpatine in it, if you wanted to bring him back and use him as a villain, as Laurence says, he should have come in as the cliffhanger for that episode. For The Last Jedi, or some sort of indication.
Yeah, you needed a bit of a hint that someone was there beforehand.
Yeah,
I'll give you that.
That would have been Can you imagine if we'd left the cinema at the end of Last Jedi? Even I might have had hope at the end of that. If the end of The Last Jedi had been a reveal of Palpatine, I would have forgiven a lot of sins. And they didn't give us that.
Yeah,
I mean, it's constant mistakes because obviously they had the Domhnall Gleeson character. He was always a starch twirling villain from Episode 7, but Episode 8 he's completely deballed to the extent that they bring in Richard E. Grant to kill him off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things. I mean, it's something like that an internet reviewer said in Episodes 1, 2, and 3, you always had Darth Sidious behind the scenes. You had Darth Maul, and then you had General Grievous, and then you had Count Dooku as Darth Tyrannus. You always had credible villains. And Kylo Ren was never a credible villain to me.
No, he's having tantrums.
Yeah, he's throwing tantrums, losing control, which is fine. That's a character element. Killing his dad off, that works. that solidifies his character. And to me, there's no coming back from that. So to make him a hero, because Leia died, because Carrie Fisher died in between the two episodes, her redeeming him doesn't work with Kylo Ren. It doesn't mesh with his character. And I mean, if you want to talk about franchise bits, there are elements. Force projection brought in with episode 8, The Last Jedi, so you could project yourself over. Okay, that's controversial, but force powers is stuff we haven't seen. But then they go one up with astral projection, where they can somehow connect with each other. They can see what the other person's seeing. And influence it. So Rey can throw her lightsaber and Kylo Ren can catch it. It just and force healing, bringing people back from the dead. Frankly, Anakin could have used that in episode 3.
But we've established that Star Wars is very fond of introducing things and carefully forgetting them. Being able to force run very, very quickly in the prequel
episode 1, yeah.
Being able to jump really high. Midi-chlorians being the biggest, probably, in that we don't mention them now. They didn't happen, but they did.
Well, yeah, it did happen. It's just not mentioned again. Now, It was a stupid decision that was got rid of. I'm fine with that. But the idea is that the idea that Jedi like Obi-Wan wouldn't know how to heal Qui-Gon when he's been stabbed through the chest and all this kind of thing. It's just. It doesn't make any sense. And my final, from a storyline point of view, is Palpatine wins. His whole plan is to get Rey to kill him. She kills him. He says, "Strike me down." And in the end, she strikes him down. So doesn't his essence just transfer to her? Because that would have been a hell of an ending. Her in the desert going, "Yeah, I'm Rey Skywalker." She nicked the name. I'm Rey Skywalker, and then she just sort of, turns to the twin sunset, and just see her have an evil smile. And the idea that Palpatine, or you hear Palpatine's voice, or something that he's not gone, would have been quite interesting. Because he wins, he gets what he wants her to do.
I have to say, the wife said to me today, "Why is it called the Rise of Skywalker?" And I said, I've absolutely no idea because there's no Skywalkers in it.
No.
It's a weird title. Very weird title.
I mean, the annoying thing is Hayden Christensen did have a voice bit for that movie because he so wanted to do Darth Vader properly. He so wanted to redeem what he sees as redeeming himself from episodes 2 and 3. He did do bit, and all of his stuff was cut.
I get that she wanted to take the name as a tribute, and it is kind of her rise, and that's her. You become who you want to be, and she wants to be that. I can kind of see it, but it's a bit weird. And she doesn't become what he wants her to be when she does strike him down, but she doesn't become what he wanted her to be. She doesn't embrace the hate in that sense. It's a case of, no, I'm just going to take you out.
It doesn't quite reach.
Strike me down to attain my.
It doesn't quite go to the heights of Luke in episode 6 saying to the Emperor, "You failed, Your Highness. I'm a Jedi, like my father before me."
Yeah.
I wish Palpatine could have turned around and gone, "Yeah, but he was a pretty Jedi, let's be honest." But be that as it may, it doesn't mesh. I mean, the theme, it seems, of episode 8 was that the past is the past and you can be who you want to be. It's all echoing Dark Knight Rises with Bruce saying that a hero can be anyone.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you come from, it's what you do that defines you.
Yes.
And all that kind of stuff. And then they completely abandon it. Oh, by the way, actually, you're Palpatine's granddaughter, so that's why you're powerful in the Force. And I never like, and in recent movies have done this quite a bit, where plot lines haven't made sense. They did a lot of it with Avengers Endgame, but it's time travel, so you can exclude a lot of it. But now, apparently in the novelization of the Rise of Skywalker, they've done things about the fact that Palpatine's son isn't actually his son; he's actually a clone of Palpatine. And they've built in lots of stuff to try and cover up the cracks of what they've created. And to me, it's incredibly frustrating.
I can hear that.
Yeah, we can tell you.
I can sense disturbance in your force.
You're breaking my heart, Keith. I'm a bit worried I might die.
Well, in that case, Chris, I'm sure you'll be an angel.
Gentlemen, that's been a fun one. I'm glad we did get to talk about the recent trilogy. I think we shall draw that one to a close. It's been quite one of our longest podcast so far, but very enjoyable. Gentlemen, on the old internet, where can people find you, Laurence?
Laurence with a U _ tuck TUCK at Twitter handle. That's my Twitter handle. I guess that's what's called, isn't it?
Yes. Keith, where can people find you?
You can find me on the website Archive of Our Own under the moniker Deathwalker.
Mm-hmm. And I can be found at Critic Guy Chris. Hope you'll join us again. Thank you very much for your time. Stay safe, everybody. Bye.